Hey guys, I finally did it. Dark Souls 2 completed. 70 hours it took me to play this game. Granted, I am still kind of playing it on New Game Plus, though I think I'm actually gonna hold off on this and I might actually even trade it in or sell it and get the PC version. I'll talk about that later, why I plan to do that, but uh, Dark Souls, it's my favorite game of the last generation. This was my most anticipated game of the year. Did it disappoint? No, not at all. Why can't every game be this good? Dark Souls 2, to put it simply, this is one of the best games I've ever played. And I'm not, I'm totally serious. Like, this game, all 70 hours of this game, I cannot, it's almost too hard to express the pure joy I had playing through this game. The first day I got this, I picked it up at like 11 o'clock in the morning. I took off a week of work to play this. Just that's how excited I was for this game. And that day, the Tuesday, I played, and I haven't done this for a long time. 15 hours straight I played this game for, which sounds crazy, and it is. I haven't done that since like the World of Warcraft days. Like I was heavily addicted to that game. But that was kind of like an addiction. I was addicted to that game. I don't know if I'd necessarily call World of Warcraft like a great game. This game, on the other hand, is fucking fantastic. I'm so glad they didn't fuck it up. I think it was expected that this was going to be a great game, but with the change in director, the main director of Dark Souls and Demon Souls was not. He was only a supervisor for Dark Souls 2, but it's generally the same team from Software, and they knocked it out of the park. And I know Steven was mentioning, Steven the Leg Gamer, that Dark Souls is now his favorite game of all time. And I've kind of struggled with that myself, because I've never replayed a game as much as that. And I usually consider, like, Ocarina of Time or Jet Force Gemini my favorite game of all time. But honestly, the more I think about it, and when I take off when I throw nostalgia out the window, you know what? Dark Souls, it's probably my favorite game of all time as well. And with Dark Souls 2, the Souls series, it's my favorite series in gaming, bar none. But this video might be a bit long. Honestly, I could see myself going for over an hour talking about this game. So what I'm going to do is kind of, I'm going to start with the video off with kind of a general impressions for those that maybe haven't played a Souls game, and kind of go into the game and how it works. So for those that haven't played a Souls game, I'd say maybe watch the first 20 minutes of this video, and then later, after that, I'll go more deep into the game, and talk about the differences between this and Dark Souls and Demon Souls, because there's so much to cover with this game. Like, it's insane the amount, like, the content here and just how deep this game is. There's so much to it. So I'll start off with kind of general impressions and kind of give an overview of how the Souls games work, because I'll tell you, if you haven't played a Souls game, and with this being the new release, you can dive right in with this game. You don't need to play Dark Souls or Demon Souls to know what's going on with the story here, because it takes place in the same world as Dark Souls, but it's like a different story with different characters. Though there are some cool throwbacks to Dark Souls. And with that, actually, I'll talk about the story. I'm not going to go too much into it, though. You're basically a cursed character trying to find a cure for your curse. And you kind of find yourself in the land of Drang Lake, I think it's called. Yeah, that's about all I want to talk about. The story, admittedly, I found myself more interested in the characters, and I want to wait till the PC version until I dive more into the lore of this game. And before I played this, I actually went and watched a bunch of lore videos on YouTube for Dark Souls, which is something I hadn't done, and that just made me appreciate that game way more than I had before. It's a lot of the characters have such tragic backstories to them, and like how they get from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And it's kind of the same with the game. The same thing with this game, where the main story itself I didn't find too interesting, mainly because a lot of it is so vague in typical Souls game fashion. You really got to look out for stuff on your own and read item descriptions to kind of get lore. But the characters in this game I thought were really fascinating. A lot of really interesting characters, and I loved kind of the arc of a lot of these characters from the start of the game to the end of the game. So I don't want to go too much into the story, but I will say the Souls games have always been that kind of thing where they don't tell you the story in massive cutscenes with like tons of exposition and dialogue thrown at you. You really kind of got to have to discover the story for yourself, and I like the way the Souls games do that. I like how it's not intrusive. And the story's there. There's a great story and lore here if you want to go looking for it, but you can get past that all and just play it for the gameplay, which on a first playthrough I generally do that. I think the PC version was one I'm going to get more heavily into the lore, but definitely the characters themselves were pretty damn interesting. I can't wait to kind of see how this really ties in with Dark Souls. It should be interesting as people kind of fish out more about the lore in this game, because a lot of it's going to remain a mystery, I'm sure, for quite some time, which is always another fun thing about the Souls series. People kind of find digging up lore for themselves and kind of having debates and stuff like that. I don't know, I just really like the approach to storytelling they take with these games. Visually, it's... I gotta say, after playing Dark Souls on the PC for so long, this doesn't look quite as good on the PS3 here. As far as I know, like the PS3 and 360 versions, like the PS3 has some frame rate issues. Like it's never too bad. It's pretty noticeable at first after playing like the PC version of Dark Souls. It's never like a solid 30 frames per second. It hovers like maybe around like 25 to 28 or so. And I think the 360 version runs at a better frame rate, but apparently that has some pretty severe screen tearing. So that's up to you what you want to deal with more. I don't have a 360. I probably honestly might have gone with the 360 version if I had it, because the PS3 controller I just don't like very much. The DualShock 3, I don't know. It's just not, I don't know, for the Souls games especially, I felt like a lot of the times like I would hold up my shield to block and it felt like it wouldn't. It was like the controller. Though there's some stuff with the game itself, which I'll talk about in the gameplay. But that's, on a technical side, yeah, the frame rate's not that great. Well, it's serviceable. The visuals, though, are amazing. They're draw-dropping in the art design, the environment design. And this is one of the staples of the Souls series. There's so many environments in this game that are just beautiful to look at. Like one environment in particular, I got there, I put down the controller down. Well, I didn't really put down the controller. I just looked around this area just for so long, and I was just amazed. And the variety in these environments is crazy. Add to that the amazing, intricate level design for all of these areas. Like, it's such a massive world in this game, and each area is so different from the last. I think honestly, like the art design department at From Software, they've got the best art designers in the business, I think. Like, honestly, this game's breathtaking to look at. Like, even technical issues aside, that's why I'm super excited for the PC version. It's gonna look amazing, I think. But visually, it's an excellent game. Sound design, excellent too. Really solid sound effects that really, like, each weapon has their own different sound effects. It's got that horror type sound design going on in some of the locations where you got to actually be careful of enemies behind you, and you can always hear them from behind you, and you're constantly watching your back, and you're always so scared from what's around the corner. A lot of that has to do with the excellent sound design in these games. In Dark Souls 2, it's no different. It's absolutely amazing. Music, there's not too much of it, like with a lot of other Souls games, but the music that is here is really good. A lot of cool themes. The Majula theme, like the main hub world in the game, the music that plays there is fantastic. Other than that, though, other than a few songs, you're not going to be listening to much music in this game, because it doesn't need it, because the atmosphere is so thick and so foreboding that it works better when there is no music. Those sound effects are crazy, though. The gameplay, here's where I'm not going to go into too deep into detail here. This is like the general impressions part, but the Souls games, where do I want to go from here? If you've probably heard that these games are difficult, and a lot of people, I find, are intimidated by that, and they don't want to play the games for that reason. And that always kind of makes me a bit sad, because, yeah, I'll admit, these games are challenging, and Dark Souls 2 in particular, I think, is probably... It's harder than Dark Souls, not quite as difficult as Demon Souls. Demon Souls, for my money, is still the hardest in the series, and as long as they're like more lenient with their checkpoints, and a lot of that is due to the bonfire system they utilize in this one and Dark Souls, it's never going to be that hard again, because the checkpoints in Demon Souls were just ridiculous. But yeah, Dark Souls 2, it's challenging. I died a lot playing this game. I'm not gonna lie. It's especially when you play it the way I did, which is not use any summons and um, yeah, just not use any summons and not look up anything on the internet, like a blind run, which is the best way to play a Souls game. Um, but at the same time, it's a challenge that's not frustrating. It's an addictive challenge, and it's a rewarding challenge. I mean, the Souls games, they're the most rewarding games out there, and a part of that has to do with the sense of exploration and discovery, which this is my favorite part of the Souls games. This is why I love these games so much. Um, like these environments, there's so many different ways you can take, and just there's so many different items scattered in these environments. You can go any way you want. This game, it's very non-linear for like the first 70% of the game. There's multiple routes you can take. And the world design is just so amazing, and you're every time you see like this white like a corpse in the distance with an item on it, you just want to loot it and see what you get. It's that the sense of exploration and discovery. But before I talk too much about that, I guess like the core gameplay of the game, for those that don't know, it's a third-person action RPG. The combat is kind of reminiscent to like a hack and slash game, but at the same time, it feels so different. You've got your lock on, but you can also not lock on. A lot like it's hard to describe because the combat is so different depending on the way you play. The beginning of the game, you kind of choose your class. You know, you got your sorcerer, your knight, your warrior. You can choose like a starting item. Each class has their own weapons and armor. Each starts at their own different soul level, and like you gather souls and you can level up with those souls and buy items with those souls. Each level up allows you to put 1 point into a stat. Basically, you kind of make your build from there. You want to focus on certain stats depending on what build you're going to go for. There's respec items in this game, which is new to Dark Souls 2, where you can never, even if you feel like you completely screwed up your character, you can respec if you want. So there's so many different options there, it's insane. I went with a cleric faith strength build for this game, which I almost regretted it at first because it was tough going at first. But once I started getting some like damaging miracles, it got quite a bit easier. So the combat is just fucking amazing. It takes a little to get used to. It's a very tactical, slow. It kind of is slow-paced combat because you can't just go rushing in, hacking, slashing, and expect to succeed, or you'll just die. Enemies are very aggressive in this game. You gotta always. A tip for beginning players, I think, if you want to go for a character like a swordsman, there's dual wielding in this game. You're gonna have to get used to dodging as a swordsman, which I don't know if I'd recommend that for a first-time player because dodging is a bit less. It's a bit more risky than holding up your shield and blocking hits, but a good first tip for a first-time player is to get your shield and always be holding your block, especially in the levels as you're going around corners, because you never know when an ambush could come at you or a bunch of enemies. And basically, you have your stamina meter. Attacks can go hit your shield and you'll lose some stamina. Rolling takes stamina. Everything takes stamina in this game, so you always got to watch out for that. You've got your health meter, you've got your lock on, you can kind of strafe around enemies, and you can kind of dodge out of attacks to dodge magic. Tons of different weapons to equip in your right and left hands. You can equip like pyromancy hands, so instead of a weapon you can switch to a pyromancy hand. You can use fire spells or a staff, and you can use sorceries and stuff like that, and you can switch from your weapon, your like melee weapon, your magic weapon on the fly. So it's you can, there's just so many ways to create your character here and play the game. Like the combat changes so, like it's like the differences even between a weapon, like each weapon feels completely different from the next and has their own move set. There's the upgrading of weapons in this game. You find shards that you can use at blacksmiths to upgrade your weapons. You can add elemental damage, and I'll talk about this a bit more when I go a bit more in depth. But the upgrading system is streamlined in this game compared to Dark Souls. There's actually a lot of streamlining overall, which makes this game, I think, a good entry point for this series. The tutorial is really effective compared to Dark Souls, which I don't think the tutorial in that game was crazy effective. But the combat just feels so satisfying. Like that's the main thing. Like it's just I've never played a game where combat has felt so satisfying as it is in Dark Souls, especially against the boss fights, which, god damn, there's so many bosses in this game, every one different from the next, and you really got to be careful with these bosses. You got to take your time. You got to learn their attack patterns and just really get a gauge on what they're going to do. And they're challenging as all hell. Some of them aren't, but most of them are. And you can really kind of change your play style depending on the boss. It's like, and in this game, because it's not super linear like the beginning of Dark Souls, if you're stuck on a particular boss, you can go somewhere else. You can try another boss, or you can make use of the amazing multiplayer in this game. But first I want to mention the soul system. Every time you kill enemies, when you kill bosses, you'll get souls. It's your main currency in the game. It will let you level up. When you die, you lose your souls, and you got to go back to where you died and pick them back up. If you die on your way back to getting your souls, they're gone for good. So it's, it can be a bit punishing, but at the same time it creates this sense of, it's so rewarding. It's scary, man. When you're playing through these levels trying to get your souls back, you don't want to die, and when you have a ton of souls, you're just on edge. This game keeps you on edge constantly, and it's so satisfying, and it's fun. People always bring up the difficulty of these games, but I don't know. It's one of those challenges where it's just plain fun. A lot of that has to do with the exploration, which I think is just top notch, and just the environments and all the different situations you'll find yourself in, and the level design. Like, the level design in these games is like, it's amazing. It's so good. Like, some of the areas in this game, I was blown away by the level design. Like, it's so intricate. It's so like detailed, and like every enemy has its place. Like, and a lot of the enemies are there for lore reasons. Like, it's just crazy. Almost every corpse and item that you'll pick up is there for a reason. It's not put there randomly. There's a reason for everything in this game. It's just like the amount of detail and effort put into it is it's staggering. Not only that, like the amount of content here, the amount of mystery to this game. Like, a lot of stuff you'll come across in this game, you won't even know what it is. Like, there'll be locked doors that, like, I beat the game and there were still locked doors that were locked, and I was just like, what? What's behind there? But yeah, like, the combat's amazing. There's that soul system, which is great. The bosses are fantastic. The level design is absolutely amazing. You've got the sense of exploration discovery. Every time you find an item, you're excited to see what it is and how it could help you in some way. One of the best moments in this game was when I was going through a certain dungeon, and it can feel like a dungeon crawler at times because a lot of these environments are dungeon-like. So I'd almost call it like a third-person, like, action-adventure dungeon crawler. It's got that great sense of adventure too, just because the world's so huge and sprawls out so, like, it sprawls out so much. But one particular moment, I was in a certain dungeon, and I there's like a jump mechanic in this game where you can jump to certain edges. But I just noticed a chest like way far away from where I was, and it took me forever to realize how I was going to get to it. And I eventually did figure things out. There's some small puzzle solving in this game. It's nothing too complex, and it's really rewarding. Like, I don't want to spoil some of the stuff in this game, but some of the puzzle solving, but it will change things in significant ways. I'll just say, like, one boss, if you figure out like a minor puzzle in the level, it changes the boss fight significantly, which is really cool. There's all sorts of hidden like mysteries and things you can do within these levels. But the one chest, I finally reached it. I was like, damn, that was a hard chest to get. I open it. It's a miracle that I had been looking for the entire game, and it changed everything for me. I was just plowing through bosses. It helped me get through so many tough sections of the game. There was one boss I was skipping for the longest time. I went back to that boss and I kicked his ass, and it was just, because I was rewarded for exploring these environments, and it's so, the feeling you get, like the sense of joy going through this game is just, I can't, it's just so good. But yeah, like tons of different NPCs you'll find in this game that are so mysterious. And they'll go back to your main hub world, which is Majula, if you find them throughout the world. And they'll stock up on different items. I don't want to spoil too much about the game, but there's just so much interesting stuff happening in this game. And then we have the multiplayer, the online multiplayer. Now, okay, I hate multiplayer. I don't even like local multiplayer anymore, really. I hate online multiplayer. I just hate playing with people. I hate competitive multiplayer. Any kind of multiplayer, I'm not into it. In Dark Souls, I love it. It's fantastic because it's unique and it's non-intrusive in a way that I like. This game changes things in a way. If you equip a certain ring, you can actually hear other people talk. But other than that, you're not going to hear people talk. And the multiplayer in this game is so unique. Basically, you can be invaded by other people in their own worlds, and they can kill you. But at the same time, they'll have sinned for invading you, and their health will go down. Which is another thing. A big difference between this game and Dark Souls is that every time you die, your health goes down a bit to I think 50% is like the minimum health you can go down to. There's a ring that can bring you up to 75%. I definitely recommend equipping that ring. It makes it a lot less harsh. But there's that's one of the things I don't like so much about Dark Souls 2 as opposed to Dark Souls. I'll talk about that in like the more detailed part of this review. But the online, you can be invaded, you can invade other players. But the fun part to me is the co-op. Basically, you can get a soapstone in the game where if you're at a boss, in front of a boss fog gate is what they call it, you put down your summon sign. Someone can, see that summon sign in their world if they're human, which I actually forgot to talk about that whole element of the game. And they can summon you to their game. You can help them kill the boss, and you get souls from it. Souls that you can use to level up and buy items, which is a thing I definitely recommend doing. It makes the game a lot more fun, and when you tackle that hard boss with another player, it's gratifying to hear them see them do all these gestures in mid-battle. Like the communication, I like the multiplayer in this game because the communication is so laid back. There's no voice chat. There's no 12-year-old kids yelling at you, and telling you they, calling you names and all that. Like there's none of that shit. It's just jolly cooperation, which that's a Dark Souls term. But the invading is also fun, and that adds to the PvP. And I can get into Covenants too. There's a really fleshed out PvP, which makes a lot of people end up playing the Souls games forever because of it. I'm not too into it, but I like to have some fun with PvP every once in a while. And this game, in Dark Souls 2, it's a lot more enjoyable because of certain Covenants. Covenants are basically like things you join where... I'll give an example of one. I don't want to spoil a lot of the Covenants in this game, but I think there's like 9 of them you can find throughout the game. One, for example, is the Bell Towers Covenant, which is it's probably my favorite one in the game. There's an area in the game where there's like a bell that people are trying to ring, and they have to fight a boss to ring this bell, and it's in this small kind of area with some enemies. If you join this Covenant, you wear a certain ring, whenever someone tries to fight this boss, like a person enters this area and they're not in that Covenant, you'll automatically invade their world to try to take them out before they can reach the boss, and you're rewarded. If you get a certain amount of kills, you can get like different kind of items. Each Covenant has their own different types of rewards. You can rank up in these Covenants. It adds a lot of it adds a lot of replay value to the game. There's just so many different rewards there, and granted, a lot of it's more like towards PvP type stuff. But some of the Covenants, like that Bell Covenant, are just really, really cool. So yeah, there's that system, the Covenant system, the online system, and don't worry about the invasions too much. You're not going to be invaded too much. I wasn't invaded too much in this game. Even though you can be invaded while you're hollow in this game, which I gotta mention that. You can be hollow or a human. You start off human when you're at full health. If you die, you're in hollow mode, and you slowly get more and more hollowed, which means your facial features start turning more like zombie-like, and you start becoming undead. And if you're human, I think like invasions are more rare, and you're able to summon people into your game. To become human in Dark Souls 2, you gotta use an item called a human effigy. It's a bit different in other Souls games. And being human is insanely helpful because you can summon people into your game. If you're having trouble with a certain boss, turn human, and you'll see summon signs everywhere that you can summon people into your game, and you take on that boss that you've been stuck on for a while. Now, I struggle with that a bit in the sense that I like to do it on like second playthroughs. First playthroughs, I'd actually probably more recommend like not using summons. It kind of makes you a more confident player, I feel. Granted, though, it doesn't really matter. I mean, play the game however you want. It really, don't let people like tell you like to play this game a certain way. Like I think the Dark Souls community has some people like that will like, get mad if people play it a certain way, and a lot of people will say like summoning is cheesing the game or ruins the game. I don't think it ruins the game at all. I will say I look at it as like an easy mode, but for those that are intimidated by the difficulty and don't want to be frustrated, that's a perfectly great way to have some fun and get rid of these bosses, because a lot of these bosses are constantly focusing on you the entire fight. Get two buddies with you and they'll start the boss will focus on them, and you can, I don't know, it just makes the bosses quite a bit easier. And you can do this from the levels as well. The message system is actually probably my favorite thing about the online features of this game. You're constantly seeing messages laid by other people, and you can lay them as well. And people will rate your messages. If you lay a helpful message down on the ground, like for instance, if there's an ambush ahead, you lay down a message on the ground saying ambush ahead. If someone rates your message, you'll get a small health bonus. So I found it most helpful if I was in the middle of a boss fight and I had a bit of health lost. All of a sudden, oh, your message is rated, and you get that health bonus. It feels so great when that happens. You can keep track of your messages, which ones have the highest amount of, like the most amount of ratings. And it really helps exploration as well, I feel like. Some of the stuff is crazy hard to figure out, so some of it's pretty great to see that message, like an illusion wall ahead. And if you press X on the wall, all of a sudden it disappears in front of your eyes, and there's like a hidden chest behind there. I don't know, it's just that online element. Like it adds this overall the game can feel lonely at times, and I actually kind of like that. But at the same time, you can see like other people, like their spirits going around in the game, and you can see blood stains. You can touch blood stains to see how other people died. It's like this non-intrusive multiplayer. Like it doesn't get in the way of the game. It enhances it, which is like rarely the case for me in games. But I think that's about covers it. Again, like that's like the general impressions, and even this went on too long. But all I gotta say is, if you haven't played a Souls game, please play this. I mean, it's not going to be for everyone, I'll admit. Even with all the things to make the game easier, and the fact that this is, overall, I think this is more accessible than previous Souls entries. I want to say also, like, don't give up on it in the first couple hours. I find a lot of people will actually just give up on it in, like, the first 3 to 5 hours, which I honestly, I almost did it too. Dark Souls, I almost quit in those first few hours, because it starts out pretty rough. It starts out pretty tough, I got to admit. Especially when you're not used to how the combat works, or how anything works, really. And I just want to try to stick with it, like, at least for, like, 7 hours or so. You will get better. You will learn the game. You'll learn how to adjust to certain enemies. You'll get through these areas. And actually, I do want to mention, totally forgot about this, like, one of the biggest changes with Dark Souls 2. If you go through an area, right, because the enemies will respawn when you die, and when you go to these bonfires, which are kind of like your safe haven, you go from bonfire to bonfire. You can warp from bonfire. I can't believe I forgot to mention too. Like, again, there's so much stuff to this game, but you can warp from bonfire to bonfire, which is basically warping from area to area, right from the beginning of the game, which you couldn't do in Dark Souls. But if you go through an area, like, and you kill a certain enemy like 15 times, I think it is, they'll disappear completely, for good. You can use an item at the bonfire to kind of bring enemies back from the dead. However, they'll all be raised in strength. So it's like this kind of risk-reward thing, since you'll get better items and stuff too. And if you want a challenge, it's there. There's tons of ways to make this game hard for yourself as well, especially in New Game Plus mode. But yeah, the bonfires too are also for like your healing. You get healing Estus flasks, which are in Dark Souls. You chug them, you gain health, and they're in infinite use, but you have to rest at the bonfire to get them back. You can get Estus shards in the game that, you give them to a character at the hub world, and you can get more Estus flasks. There's like healing items in the game. Like, there's just so much to talk about with this game. It's crazy. So I'll talk about that more, I guess, in the in-depth stuff. But yeah, try not to give up on it, and honestly, just play this game. And, because I really want to see this game do well, because I'd want to see more and more Souls games. Granted, I hope they would keep it the same, like, development time, like a 3-year development time. If they start taking, like, being very quick with development time, like a yearly release. Okay, I wouldn't like that so much, but the fact that 3 games in and this series is still so amazing, and I want more of it. Like, I didn't want this game to end. 70 hours in, and I didn't want it to end. I was so sad when this game ended. But at the same time, the replay value is just through the roof because of all the different character builds you can make, and just all the different weapons, and how you're always discovering new things every time you play. It's absolute craziness. But I gotta say, like, it's for full price, just buy it. It's easily the best game this year so far, and I've been looking at the new releases. I don't think anything is going to top it. I want something to top it. I desperately do, but I just don't see it, honestly. If this isn't my game of the year, I'll be very surprised, because the amount of fun I had with this game is it's crazy. So yeah, amazing game. Definitely buy it. And that kind of ends the general impression. So if you've don't know too much about the Souls games, the rest of this review is probably not going to mean much to you. So that's fine if you don't want to keep watching, but I have to recommend this game. Like, it's just it's so goddamn good. But let's talk about the game a bit further in depth here. And how does it compare to Dark Souls and Demon Souls? Now, there's a lot of different changes here. I think one of the biggest changes here is the healing system. In Dark Souls, it's going to be hard to kind of compare because we've got 3 games in the series now. Demon Souls, you had just life recovery items. You had so much of them in that game, but well, I shouldn't be. I should be more talking in the sense that I assume people that have gotten this far have played all the Souls games. So I'm going to be talking like people understand what I'm going after here. In Dark Souls 2, you've got limited Estus flasks, like I've mentioned. But not only that, you start the game with 1 flask. That's it. Other than that, you got to use life gems. It recovers your health very slowly in the beginning, and it takes a long time to chug this Estus flask, which changes how the game plays, especially in the early game. You got to be really careful with where you heal and like when you heal, because that can kill you really fast, and it takes a while to get used to. Also, holding up your shield, there's a new adaptability stat, and that kind of raises your agility. It's tough to say if this is going to be like a super important stat that people are going to want to really put levels into, but for now, you can definitely tell that like raising your shield, rolling, like all that, like the time it takes to do that, is governed by that agility stat, which makes combat, again, very different in the beginning game, and I think it makes it quite a bit harder. Once you start upgrading your flask and you start to abandon the healing gems and just start going with the flask, and you raise your adaptability up and your health up and things like that, your stamina, it starts to feel more like Dark Souls did, even though the animations this time around are like much improved. I really love the animations this time. Staggering takes a little while, I've noticed, a lot longer than Dark Souls. If you get hit when when you're at low stamina and you block a hit, like you stagger back, and it takes a long time to get back into the position where you can hold up your shield again. So I got caught slipping up with that a lot in the early game. Like the early game, I was a bit put off because it didn't quite feel the same as Dark Souls, but eventually it does. And it just makes the game challenging in an interesting way where I think it kind of trains you to be more careful with your Estus flasks. Where in Dark Souls, I was just healing constantly all the time, and you had so many. This game, there's like a maximum of 12, and you can only upgrade it to +5, so you're always going to be careful with your healing items in this game, which I like. I like the change. I wasn't too sure about it in the beginning, but I like it. It's one of my favorite changes in Dark Souls 2. Now, the respawning enemies, like I said before, there's been some debate about this. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I've heard a lot of people say it's bad because you can't farm anymore. You can be worried about farming going through these environments, because if enemies like disappear from the map completely, it's all barren. You can't get souls, and that didn't bother me so much because, quite frankly, I don't really farm in Souls games. I don't ever feel like I need to, and if I do, I'll help people defeat bosses. That's a great way to get a shit ton of souls, and it's a far more fun way than farming enemies. So I don't know. To me, it didn't bother me so much. I can see why people would be bothered by it, and it's honestly, I don't think it makes the game easier by any stretch of the imagination. It does cut out some tedium, though, I found. Because there's one particular area in the game that was just fucking brutal. And if it wasn't for this, like if it wasn't for some of the enemies disappearing, like it would have caused far more frustration than it normally would than it did really. Um, so honestly, it's a change I like. I wasn't too sure about it at first, but I actually like the change. It's good. I like it. Um, Magic and miracles and things. There was talk of it being nerfed. I don't think so. I think it's just as strong as ever. A lot of there's no not like Demon Souls where it felt like a lot of the bosses were resistant to magic. This game, that's not the case. Um, the boss designs and level designs overall, I think, are the strongest in any Souls game. And I am going to be talking about like the positive changes here compared to Demon Souls and Dark Souls. Yeah, every boss in this game except for I think there's two bosses I hated in this game, and they both happen to be the gimmick battles, which Demon Souls had quite a few of them. Dark Souls had the one, I think, the Bed of Chaos. This game, there's two, and I really didn't like them. Thank God, though, there's not too much of them, and there's so many bosses in this game, and they're so different from one another. I love them all. I think this game has the strongest boss encounters in the series. Same with the level design, absolutely amazing. World design, on the other hand, I don't like it as much as Dark Souls. Dark Souls had a very, like, as a lot of you know, had a very cohesive world design. How everything kind of was interconnected, how you'd constantly unlock new shortcuts and find your way back to Firelink Shrine. Like, that first moment when you get to that, you unlock a shortcut and find your way back to Firelink Shrine, you're just like, holy shit. And you see different parts of the environment. You can always go there. When you were in, like, the catacombs and you could see, like, the you can see different areas from other areas. It's crazy. The cohesive game design of Dark Souls, it was missed in Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2, being able to warp around the map, it lost that cohesion. There's not as many shortcuts. There's some shortcuts in the levels themselves, and it did feel like a sprawling world, but the warping kind of definitely got rid of that cohesiveness that I missed about Dark Souls. Granted, the world design itself I still think is great, and it's a cool mix of Demon Souls and Dark Souls, where it's not super linear like Demon Souls, where it's just level by level. This game, there's always multiple routes to tackle. The end game gets a bit more linear, but I don't know. I like how they had things like the Demon Souls Dark Souls mix. I thought was really interesting. It was really rewarding searching different areas and being able to not be locked on one path. I really appreciated that. And warping around bonfires, again, cuts out a lot of that tedium. One thing I didn't like about it, though, is you can't level up at bonfires. You have to level up at an NPC in Majula. It just was a lot of busy work for me. I don't think leveling up at bonfires would have changed much. It just would have cut out some tedium, honestly. I don't know. Every time I needed to level up, having to go back to Majula and through a bunch of loading screens, and they're kind of long, I'll admit. It just kind of started to wear on me a bit. The upgrade system, like I mentioned before, is another change that I really like. Before, there was just so many different materials you needed to upgrade weapons, and a lot of it was confusing and not told to the player, and it wasn't told to the player very well. In this game, each weapon can only go up to plus 10. And there's only like 3 materials and you need to upgrade it to the max. And then there's some other like stones to add elemental damage to it. And it's not like you need to, have a lightning weapon from plus 1 in the beginning and bring it all the way up to plus 15. You can take a plus 10 weapon you have, just use like a bolt stone, infuse the weapon, and automatically it's a lightning weapon plus 10. It cuts down a lot of tedium and farming. I really like how they made the weapon upgrade system fun to mess around with, even though it is quite a bit simpler. I could see maybe some people not liking it, but I loved it. A change I didn't like so much, I guess, like I mentioned before, was the health thing. Dying, you're punished for dying by your health being reduced. I just don't know really what that adds to the game. It was one of my complaints with Demon Souls as well. I don't think it necessarily it does make the game harder, but not in a way that I find is refreshing or anything. It's just kind of annoying. I don't know. It's not so bad with that certain ring, but it does waste a ring slot. Which, by the way, 4 ring slots now, badass. It seems like such a minor change, but it really changes the game for me. But yeah, that bonfire system. Like I said before, I love it in this game as well. It's so much better than that system they used in Demon Souls, where you just had to go through entire levels. In fact, this game, it takes a lot of what wasn't so great about Dark Souls and Demon Souls and refines it in really excellent ways. Some of the changes they made, yeah, maybe not for the best, but uh, is it better than Dark Souls though? That's the question. New Game Plus. I should talk about New Game Plus too. I'm kind of like a quarter into New Game Plus, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing it with it. New Game Plus, it's interesting in this game. Like, there's whole new enemies in it that you don't even see in the main playthrough, like the normal game. But they made it. They almost went overboard with the difficulty. Like, there's some bosses in this game where you'll be fighting them, and red phantoms will come in at like halfway through the fight. Like, it's insane. And they're all in the levels, like, and they do tons of damage and have tons of health. They really went out of their way to make New Game Plus a challenge in this. But I do like how they made it different. A lot of people will get a kick out of the New Game Plus. Personally, I always just preferred making a new character from scratch. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be going for the Platinum Trophy. I said I was a while back. That's always the case with me. I say, oh, I'm going to go for the Platinum, and then I start realizing the effort it would take to get it, and I'm just like, I'm good. This game, to get the Platinum, you have to play a lot. You have to do New Game plus to get some of like the miracles and sorceries, which that's too much on one character. If there was a way to get those trophies with like making a new character from scratch, I would go for it, but it's just I really just don't want to spend that much time in New Game Plus. And also, I think I'm going to be trading this in and getting the PC version anyways, so because I just really want to see what that looks like, and that's when I'm going to do my next playthrough. So I'm going to take a break from it, but I'm so ready to jump back in. I'm dying to do another playthrough right now. I really am, because like I mentioned before, the replay value in these games is just insane. Like, no other game has made me, like, no other series makes me, like, gets me in that mood where I finish the game and immediately want to jump back in. So many games I just feel like, okay, it's time to move on. Not with the Souls games, but better than Dark Souls, it's hard to say right now. I think I got to give it more time and repeat playthroughs to see how it stacks up. Right now, it's on par. It's pretty much just as good as Dark Souls, which is insane that it lived up to the hype. It lived up to the expectations, and according to a lot of the reviews, it did. Like, this game's getting like 9s everywhere. I think it's like the highest rated game of the year right now, which that's pretty crazy. That a game like this would be the highest rated game of the year, but it's definitely better than Demon Souls. I like it a hell of a lot better than Demon Souls, which I really like Demon Souls. Don't get me wrong. Although I don't, it's one of those games that if I had played it first, I don't know if I would have liked it so much. I think I have more of a better appreciation for it after playing Dark Souls first. There's just lots of things about Demon Souls I don't like the linear level structure, that health penalty, and just the checkpoints in that game. There's just, you had to play too much, and I don't know, it didn't quite have the exploration and sense of discovery. Like, it was still there, just not as much as Dark Souls and Demon Souls. I did like the atmosphere in that game, though. Demon Souls, to me, had the darkest and most effective atmosphere, which, by the way, Dark Souls 2 still has it. Atmosphere is still amazing. I could go on forever about this game. There's just so much to cover about it, but I think this is I don't know the time of this video now, but it's probably over an hour. So I want to thank you if you stuck with me this long. That's okay if you didn't. But yeah, Dark Souls 2, fucking amazing game. It's, if I could give it a score, I hate giving scores, but it's a 10 out of 10 game. I know a lot of people say, oh, if a 10 out of 10 game means it's perfect. I don't necessarily think that. I think a 10 out of 10 game should be a game that is so enjoyable that its minor flaws don't even matter. Like, your sense of enjoyment, the fun factor is just so extreme that it has to get a 10 out of 10. I don't, there's nothing about this game that bothers me in the slightest, even the nitpicks I have with it. But that's it. Dark Souls 2, fucking amazing. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.